remember that in Jerusalem itself, the perpetual light of the Holy Sepulchre is only extinguished once a year, on Holy Saturday, to be lit by the finger of God. And that is the flame that is carried on then in the Holy Sepulchre without a break. It was first reported already at the completion of the Constantinian Basilica in the 300s, and it happens ever since. And so there is more to the Paschal candle than meets the eye. God is fire. God is energy. We look at the sun as some fontal source for all that moves here on earth, as indeed did the people before us, before they had the revelation. But imagine all the power in the universe, all the wisdom and order in the universe, all that moves is, and all the potentialities of the universe, and that is the fire of our God. He is in control. In the Orient, they have the expression, the Pantokrator. Pan is all, and the root of kras is strength and power. Go into a normal Eastern church and look up. You will find a dome over your head, and you will find this looking down upon you. Christ in Majestate, the Almighty, the conquering one, and he might have written somewhere near him, Nini Kisa, I have conquered. You will then, if you look carefully, in the four corners of the dome, because the dome is in the midst of four corners, find Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They were participating in the wisdom of the Logos. And we had today the Gospel of Mark, but actually the bit that we read was probably from his school, for it is the longer ending of Mark, the tidying up process, because probably he finished it deliberately at the shock. You remember? The women left the tomb in fear and great joy, full stop. Leaving the power of the shock in the air, that was his point. It is only actually from the pen of Luke as such that we have the complete account of what happened. He is a good writer and a good historian. Compare, in parenthesis, the quality of his historical writing, backed up at key points by contemporary evidence, with what our brethren in the Muslim world have as their documents. They just do not stand up to any scrutiny. And therefore they're unwilling to talk calmly and serenely using our canons of dialogue and logic. They use other canons, raising their voice and eventually their blades. As Benedict XVI calmly put it in his magisterial teaching in Regensburg University, for which he was ticked off by people who didn't understand what he was saying, the truth has no need of anything greater than its own force to defend itself. What happened on this day? As I said, Luke gives us the best glimpse. The Acts of the Apostles, which we had, is actually more explicit than the Gospel itself. Indeed, in the Gospel itself, there seems to be some lack of universal testimony in the manuscripts themselves about one key phrase, and took his place at the right hand of the Father. In the Acts, however, it is there. And we have also how, if you were listening carefully, something happened. He extended his hands upon them and blessed them. The first blessing that we have mention of it given to human beings in that way, those hands had already extended the power of God over the material, multiplying food, healing, and even raising people from the dead. Here we have this blessing coming down, it would seem, through these that were before him. And some say that the sign of the cross was made at that point for the first time. The point is there, geographically, venerated to this time, with the footprint which fits perfectly. And in the little shrine, now for donkey's years under the hands of Muslims, they have, as they had in Christian times, an opening in the roof, so that one looks up at the clouds that received him. What happened? We were there a couple of years ago, just 5 of us, quietly in prayer, kneeling and trying to relive that moment. And the simplicity of it, because it was in Muslim hands, helped. You were just there, climbing a mountain and looking at the unchanged clouds. And one could feel there was a departing from our time and geography at this point. It was the conclusion of a period of coming and going and eating with them even, being allowed to be touched, and something else was coming in. What was already suggested when he said to the Magdalene, Noli me tangere, do not touch me, do not cling to me, I have not yet ascended to my Father. There was going to be this element of the preponderance of the divine in her thinking and not the human. This morning, I had to make an airport run, and the thought came to me as we were coming to the conclusion of the 5 glorious mysteries, how actually going into an airplane, going into flight mode, leaving what we are familiar with, and being suspended in midair, and eventually above the clouds, is in some way an experience of what perhaps the Lord had at that point in his humanity. The beautiful hymns that we have in Latin with their powerful melodies at this time say it all. He is there where his humanity was not before. There's a new element coming into heaven. He's going back now with something that was not there before. He's there with these wounds, real wounds, which he sometimes shared with his privileged souls. From Francis of Assisi through Catherine of Siena to Padre Pio on, still these appear. And when he left the maximum of what we can get through, the atmosphere above the clouds, he would have gone further and seen perhaps what the astronauts saw when in the early 70s they were leaving the stratosphere, and in one flash they could see the world, not just bits of grey, because it was far enough for them to see the whole ball, not completely round, it's an odd shape, blue looking. And the thought of, was it Armstrong? One of those astronauts was very profound. I mentioned it before, but I'll do it again because it's very true. The world looked at from another atmosphere. It's strange to think that in that one small bar, there's so much pain. And so, the Lord, leaving this cosmos as we know it, was entering the realm of what is awaiting us all. This week, in fact, this very moment, they're doing his funeral, and I probably would have gone because he formally, and was partly without knowing it, responsible for my coming to the Catholic Church. Our school teacher, our Sunday school teacher, he was somebody who was almost a crypto-Catholic and wanted us to see the whole picture. He was very balanced and wise, and exposed us to the whole Christian family. Well, he right now is being buried, and I can just, as it were, imagine what he is seeing as he also goes out of this stratosphere in his good soul into that family where we are heading for. Leaving this world, seeing his own body, and seeing the world going further and further away. And I am sure that at this moment, being that he was so known and so Welsh, they are at this very moment creating here on earth something which is as close as we can get to suggest the glory and angelic beauty that is awaiting us. I mean that powerful four-part harmony into which the Welsh go when they fill a chapel. It suggests, as well as we can, the power of beauty that made us and calls us. Homeward bound. But it also occurred to me, as I looked back into my archives, when one night, way back in about 1981-82, I was coming after the long midnight office of this feast in the Charterhouse. I looked through the cloister window at the stars. It's about 2:30 in the morning when one comes back from the long midnight office into one's cell, and it's perfectly quiet. And in the southeast of France, at this time of year, you can see perfectly all the constellations that are to be seen. Not a sound, but one is looking at what? Time. Some of those stars may no longer be there. They sent their beam years ago, light years ago. That is the flight of the soul. And I thought to myself, in the quiet of that night, what is beyond there? And what of those who don't make it? That great star that fell from heaven, Lucifer, how you have fallen from heaven, O Lucifer. That is the brightest of all angels. Down and thrown down by Michael to a whole dark, ugly, cacophonous world, which is the antipodes of where we're made for. And he reigns. He reigns over his own. Those many that right now are being hoodwinked into playing his game, even in Catholic Ireland, wanting to be his instruments here on earth. I just conclude. This feast collocates us in our reality. One of the great tricks of the enemy of the soul is to keep us busy. So busy that we can't see where we're going. So busy that we can't hear time passing. So busy that we can't hear even ourselves, and in the end have no self to hear. For we are so much sucked into the outside that we have no more interior life of our own. So pause on this day, look up and think, should I go now? Am I ready for liftoff? Ascension Day, after night office. O empty sky, O silent night, O filled with peace and sacred light, how many stars dost thou contain? Each seems to sing in quiet strain. We turn and turn forevermore, and nightly watch the sacred door of heaven gains the pass of dark, and dance the orbs of time to mark. We are the joy of him who cried, let there be light when darkness sighed, to see his hold o'er the aeons lost, and he himself by rays tossed, to hell where light no more doth shine, where song gives place to torment's wine.
where incense is the very stench of rotting filth no flame can quench. And can it be that there above the author of all human love feels on this day some twinge of pain and thinks of seeing once again these hills that once those feet did dread, these hearts for which that heart once bled, these simple joys that life can give to those who with its giver live. We are that faithful little band the Father placed within thy hand. Thou leavest us alone this day, this is the parting of the way. Rise up above, 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 thy will be done, but come, sweet love, of which we heard that it was said, it would be given in his stead.